So still on entrepreneurship, someone asked me a question, we were just in the course of conversation, he was like, well, I'm currently working and I really, really want to be an entrepreneur. I followed the way, your conversation on why people should be entrepreneurs, but for some reason, I'm still finding it difficult to get started. So now here was my answer to you, the person, and I'm going to just put it out for everyone. First of all, some of you may have to quit your job, right? You may have to quit your job. And yeah, in most African countries where getting job can be a little difficult, um, maybe not quit your job outrightly, but you may have to go on what I call study leave because it's a lot longer leave than the usual annual leave they give. So now, what you do is when you go on this leave, number one thing you have to do is to take at least 2 weeks off of your busy schedule. 2 weeks off. If you currently live in a city like Lagos, or if you're, say, Canada, Toronto is quite busy, you may have to go to a place that is less populated, preferably a park. When I'm saying park, a park, like um, in the old days, they call such places wilderness, where there's no phone. You keep your phone aside. There's no internet connection. There's no or yeah, electricity. I don't even know if electricity is necessary. Just a place where you can connect with nature. You cook the traditional way. For me, when I did this, I was in Toronto. I went to Pinary Provincial Park, and I think it's like a couple hours out of the city, and that was really cool. I had opportunity to just wake up in the morning. I lived in a tent. It wasn't a house. I lived in a tent. I wake up in the morning, I go to the river to just watch how beautiful nature was. I can fish, and I cook by using firewood. I didn't even go with my gas stuff. I had to fetch wood and make fire and boil my food. So it was very, very good. It was just me being immersed in nature, going on a boat, um, canoeing on the water, and just loving nature. So for some of you, you may have to do this excuse me, um, for some of you, you may have to do this for 2 weeks. Just go to somewhere exclusive. If you're living in the south, you may have to go to the north. If you're living in the north, you may have to go to the west. If you're living in the west, you may have to go to the east. But the whole concept is you have to leave your place of comfort to a place where you know no one and connect with your real self. Whatever you believe in, just talk to nature, talk to your God that like I really want to be an entrepreneur. Tell him reasons why you want to be an entrepreneur, legitimate reason why you want to be an entrepreneur. For instance, he would be like, well, I'm a father and I don't just want my life to end, and or maybe I don't want a situation where by the time I'm done working, my family gets back to square one. So you want to build something for your kids. You want to build legacy for your kids. So just talk to nature about what you want, you know and just do this for 2 weeks, and trust me, man, the result will be amazing. It will be amazing. You would hear, the real you. There will be you would It would just so happen like you have real conversation with yourself. Okay, so the reason why I said, like, why I'm bringing this stuff up is like, when you go out, for some of you who are currently working, especially in government organizations, you go there, you're not doing any stuff. Like, your work is just go there, discuss with your co-workers, for a couple of hours, and off you go back home. The next day you repeat the same cycle. You're not even having good conversations. I've been to some offices where, by the time people come for inquiries, the workers get irritated because they don't even want to work. All they want is just to keep gisting, irrelevant conversations. Okay, so this is the number one way to get into business. Go out, in the Bible days, people go to wilderness to connect with their real self. So this is the first step. Take 2 weeks out to a park or a village, wherever. Even if you're going to village, not your village where you're familiar with people, a different village, right? Go there and connect with your real self. Connect with your real self, and then yeah, and see how things manifest. So this is the first step, right? Number two, you have to read. Like, it's unfortunate, a lot of people don't read anymore. People just scroll through um, Instagram, different media, social media platforms. It's crazy. You have to read. Like, you can't substitute reading for any stuff. In a world where AI is taking over, there's still genius in you being able to read and process things. There's so many ideas hidden in books. Like, I remember sometime in either 2014, I was sort of depressed. I was living in Saskatchewan at the time. I was really depressed. And then, Saskatchewan is in Canada. So, out of this depression, I wanted to go get a coffee from a coffee shop. That summer I was looking for a job, like nothing was working for me. So, I went to a coffee shop. So, I had to use the public transport. So why going there? Because there was just so much thought going on in my mind. I passed my bus stop, and the next bus stop um, was by the mall. And where the mall is, there was a bookstore called Indigo. It's a really big bookstore. Indigo is all over the place in Canada, almost all the cities. So I stopped in Indigo, and I said, well, since I've found myself in this book in this place, let me just go to this bookstore while waiting for the next bus to come to take me to the coffee shop. I stumbled on a book called Delivering Happiness. So because what led me to that section, I just wanted to get something on how to be happy. So I stumbled on a book called Delivering Happiness, and on reading that book, at some point I saw the story of Zappos. Zappos is a company bought by Amazon. Okay, so it was authored by, I think, Tony Sai or something. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, but one of the names I think is Tony. So it's called Delivering Happiness. So along the line, while reading, I could see an idea that could make me good money. So I was like, whoa, it was like an eureka moment for me. So I stopped reading at that point. I had to do some analysis, and then off I go. I started a business, and even in that, like, that book actually, like, the idea I got there was idea of how to start business with no money. And I started business the next day, and that business, put me on so many social media platforms, including CTV, which was the largest TV station in Canada. Newspapers were clamoring for interviews, and so on. So why am I saying this? For some of you who want to get in business, step number one, go and reunite with yourself, get to know your real self, because you don't just want to do your business like every other person. So you have to first go deep down, talk to yourself, talk to nature, talk to your creator, that this is what you want to do, and give him reasons and ask for help, and you will get it. So the second one, read book. Now, the third one on my list is watching of movies. Right, I'm not really a fan of movie, but I watch movie occasionally watch movies for educational purposes, movies and documentaries. A lot of people don't watch movie for the right reason. They watch movie for entertainment, and inside most movies, there's just so many ideas. There are a lot of conversations hidden in those movies that could fetch you great business ideas. But because you are watching it for entertainment, not for educational purpose, you miss out on these ideas. There's a ton of them. Like, if you've been following my writings on social media, there's one particular movie that I think I spoke about. It's a Nigerian movie titled The Comment. I think it was The Comment. One of the actors was Jim Ike. Yeah, so it was just talking about how social media can ruin somebody's life, especially if you're a celebrity or an entrepreneur. it's really cool movie. So I just had to explain that to my community at the time. So what I'm trying to say in essence is there's so much ideas hidden in movies, hidden in books, and you have to connect with yourself. So another one is travel. Oh man, like I can't even emphasize much on this. You have to travel. You remember when I was talking about connecting with yourself, first thing I said was you have to leave your base to somewhere else, probably a remote area. Why I said that remote area is because I'm trying to push you to connect with your real self, to know, like connect with the real being, yourself, and nature, right? So, but in this very part of travel is totally different. Now you're traveling to explore, to see what is happening elsewhere, right? If you're in Lagos, Nigeria, you can travel to Port Harcourt, and when you travel, now here's the tricky part. A lot of people travel and all they do is just take pictures. No, 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 no. No, you're traveling for educational purpose. You want to know, you want to see what people are up to. You're not traveling to go stay one place or go to one place that's happening. You're traveling to place where you can experiment, you can explore, see how they do businesses. Now I'll give you an instance. All through my stay in Saskatchewan, like I travel a lot, like when I was traveling, I've traveled to Saskatchewan, even when I went to New Brunswick and East Coast Canada. I went to Calgary. I went to Montreal. This each time I travel, I just look around to see businesses. You know, um, there's a bar. I went to in Toronto, called Spin Toronto. Is in I think King and Spadina, just a little after in between King and Spadina Street, right? Like so, when I go there, it's called Spin Toronto, and for the first time, I could see a bar that it's not just where people go sit down and drink. Like in that bar, I don't think there was chair. You basically have to, um, you basically go in there. Most time they ask you to you book ahead. You play table tennis. You can play. I don't know. I think there's snooker. Because when we went there, we went for table tennis. There are different kind of sports, and bro, like I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. This is just concept. And the moment you come there, you book your table with your friends. While you guys are playing this stuff, you're buying drinks, and you even consume more while you're standing, while you're active, than when you're sitting down. And there's just a lot of psychology to this. So, so travel for ideas, for someone who is here in in Nigeria, you can go to China and see how they do stuff. And before before you know it, travel to China, and before you know it, something can just come out of that travel. Is just fantastic. Imagine somebody going from, let's say, Canada to China for business purpose. Now you're going for what we call business exploration, not the traditional just travel to take pictures. Yeah, you have to, explore the city, but go for what I call business exploration. When you go there, look at the kind of businesses they are doing. There could be one or two business that is not done in your place that you can go to your place and replicate that business idea, right? There are also so, um, you know, the ideas you can get in that city, right? You can go from Nigeria to India and start seeing how things work. I think there's this tricycle they use in Nigeria called, I think, keke nape, right? Is it keke? Yeah, keke. Yeah. So, I believe like this stuff was a thing in India, and somebody went there and saw it, like, whoa, this is how they transport, and they brought it, introduced it to Nigeria, and today, it's like all over the place. I think it's even one of the most preferred means of transportation. Almost all the streets use it, right? So, traveling just exposes you to a lot of ideas, a lot of ideas. And the funny thing, right? A lot of people believe like traveling is expensive. Well, that could be true, but if you travel for business exploration, oh man, like you would enjoy traveling. You will see traveling in a different light. You would just have opportunity to see things the other man haven't seen. So just imagine you're based in Lagos and you went to, let's say, Sydney, Australia, and right there, normally in Lagos they have car car wash. Probably, let's say the local car. I'm not saying this the situation, but I'm just saying, let's assume in Lagos or whatever city, right? Like people do traditional car wash where you wash your car manually, and then here you are in Sydney, you discover people don't wash car manually. There's a drive-through car wash, and deep down your mind just hit like, whoa, this thing is not done in Lagos, or this thing is not done in Abidjan, or this stuff is not done in Cairo, Egypt, right? And then you go straight to your place and implement it. The importance of traveling cannot be downplayed. If you've read my book, I think that was, should it be New Destination? Yeah, I think it's New Destination. I shared a story of me and this lady in, like, we were in Egypt. We were having coffee together, and it was just fantastic. She was telling me what made her to move from the UK to Egypt. It wasn't like, and she was in Egypt for 12 years before we met. She's been in Egypt for 12 years. It was a situation. She just decided, oh, okay, let me travel to Egypt and see. From there, she was like, whoa, it was like an eureka moment. So she had to leave UK to Egypt. So there's just so much reason for you to travel. For those who wanted to do business exploration, there's a lot more I'll be talking about, but for now, I'm just gonna limit this here and let you digest this. If you follow up, first of all, I'm a business consultant, so I do a lot for a lot of businesses. Our area of focus is R&D. We do technology, marketing, and you name it. So that's our area, business consultant. So if you follow up, you'll be seeing a lot of these kind of conversations from me. All right.